Hey there. I'm Brianna Bowling, and I'm the founder of Retreat and Learn. I'm so excited to bring this topic to you today. And while we are live, you can post questions in the comments in either YouTube or Facebook, whichever one you're using, and we will answer them live. Our panelists are really excited to answer your questions. And help me out. I'm trying to bring all types of learning topics to you, but I need you, and I need you to subscribe either to the YouTube channel or follow me on Facebook so that you can know about it. So go ahead and do it now. It's super easy. Tell your friends. And you can also go to retreatandlearn.com and you can find out about our upcoming events. And also we do some in-person events and in-person retreats. So today's topic is making the most of a modified college social life during a pandemic. And I'm a college mom. My daughter is currently attending University of Mary Washington. And it's a question that keeps coming up. No one knows exactly what campus life is going to be like, and it might even change throughout the semester or the year. So I think that students have to be prepared to make the best of it and really come with an attitude of flexibility and adventure. This is a unique time. It's historical. And if they come with that sense of adventure, I think they're going to have a great time at college. It might be different from what you and I experienced in college, but it's going to be a neat time. So I want to know, as a parent of a college-age student, I want to know how can they connect with fellow students and do it safely. So I saw a quote from a parent on CBS's Good Morning America that really touched home to what I've been hearing from other parents. And the quote is, I don't remember the quote, but basically the quote was something along the lines of that what they're most concerned about is what is their social life going to be. And I don't think we're going to get all the answers because there's just so many unknowns, but we have very excellent panelists today. And I'm sure, including our panelists, we're all going to learn something from our discussion. So today we have Kelly Shannon, who is the Director of Campus Recreation at University of Mary Washington. We have Dr. Kim Lacey, who is the Associate Vice President for Student Affairs at UMBC, and Aisha Rivers, who is the Director of Student Engagement at Goucher. So I am going to welcome them to the screen. If you give me 2 seconds, I'm going to move all this stuff over and welcome everybody. So I think some of you are on mute, and that's okay. It's fine if you want to be. As you want to, you can join in with unmuting. So I'm super excited you guys are here. I really appreciate you guys putting yourself out here to talk about this topic. It's not an easy one because there aren't answers. So one of the first questions I have for you, and we can kind of go through one by one, is individually, what is your individual college doing to help promote student engagement, knowing that it's going to be a difficult time for these kids? And so I don't know if you want to start with Dr. Lacey, if you want to start.
Sure thing. Thanks, Brianna, and I am really pleased to be here. So UMBC, we have to think about not only our students who are returning to UMBC, but the students that are brand new to UMBC. And for that population, we have a welcome week that starts as soon as students arrive, and there will be many virtual activities that they can join in. And then throughout the year, for our returning and new students, our clubs and organizations, our campus recreation, career center, our cultural centers will be offering many activities, and most of them virtual. There will be some in-person activities that are small and physically distanced. And I will stop there. These are just some of the things that we're doing to get students involved and engaged.
Thank you very much. I think those are great, really nice ones. And I'm really curious to see if each of you sharing these things might give each other some ideas too. This might be a good panel for you guys too, to learn some things from each other. So Aisha, do you want to go next?
Sure. Much of what Dr. Lacey said is a lot of what we plan to do as well. And as a caveat, Goucher will be fully online instruction this semester. We had to do a lot to transition some of our programming to be virtual, and we will be doing a lot of different things. One of the things that we're trying to be very thoughtful about is getting student input. And so students have told us a bunch of different things that they're going to need in order to create a rich experience, from having movie nights to craft nights to things that will allow them to see what their professors and other staff and students are up to. So we'll be using our social media a lot, doing a lot of Instagram lives and things like that, so that people can kind of see one another in a time that we can't be with one another.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And actually, I think one of the things, Kelly, before you start, I just wanted to kind of share something really quick. One of the things that I did in terms of researching for this was to find out what the different colleges are doing. And I'm actually going to try to show this really quick. So this is what I found via the College Crisis Initiative from Davidson College. This is kind of tracking what the colleges are doing currently. And this is as of yesterday. It's probably changed. Every day I've checked it, it's changed. And one of the interesting things about this that I found was that it was 32% are still TBD or other. They really haven't quite decided of what method they're going to go. 30% are going to be primarily or fully online, like Goucher. And then 23% are going to be in full and in person. So it's interesting to find out what each college is doing. So that's a pretty good, thanks for that information too. The Goucher is going fully virtual. So thanks. All right. So Kelly, if you want to go next, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So UMW will be virtual for the first 3 weeks. And so we had been planning all summer for a little bit of virtual and a little bit of in-person for the first 3 weeks, but we're actually now 100% virtual and planning everything to be virtual for the next, I guess, for the foreseeable future. But we're keeping with a lot of our traditions. We're doing something called Eagle Gathering, where a lot of times every year our seniors light the candles of our incoming freshmen. And so we're doing this all virtually with video recordings and our Eagle Pipe Band. And we're really excited about continuing as many traditions as we possibly can in order to really make it feel like home. And I think that's the goal for our new students, especially, but also for our returning students, to make sure that it still feels like UMW and it's a comfortable experience. We're working a lot on mental health initiatives. We're working a lot on our peer mentors, our group of students upperclassmen students who work really closely with a group of 15 first-year students. And so we're working really hard with those individuals. Actually, right after this, I'm training those peer mentors on their own personal well-being and how to help encourage their students to stay engaged. And so there's a lot of very similar ideas to what has already been shared, so I won't necessarily repeat that, but just like really personal connections is what we're hoping for, and trying to facilitate that the best of our ability.
So to be clear, I'm going to make sure I had this right. So UMBC, you are going to be partially in person, right? So you're going to have resident students. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay.
We have about 1,400 students, and we typically can house about 4,000.
Okay.
So we only have 1,400. We've reduced our density. And there will be some in-person classes that, for pedagogical reasons, need to take place, like, a dance class or some of our labs. And I think that chart that you showed, that the reason that there is a population of schools that haven't decided what they're doing yet is that this COVID thing is changing every single day.
Yeah.
So one of the things that every college and university is doing is, today, this is what we're doing. But tomorrow it could change based on whatever's going on in the campus community, and actually nationally for those campuses that are recruiting nationally. So, and counties have different regulations across the state and across the country. So it's why you'll even see variability within the state.
Right. Okay. And then Goucher is going, you said, completely virtual, so you won't have any resident students?
We will open the residence halls to students who need residency in order to fulfill their
Right.
education. It's a lot. We're trying to definitely keep it very small, but we wanted to make sure that we're also supporting our students that need the most support.
Gotcha.
As well.
And then UMW, I mean, as my daughter's going, I think you guys are kind of doing like a hybrid type situation.
That's right. Yeah, students will have the ability, kind of like Aisha was saying, to opt into housing even in the first 3 weeks if they have a need.
Right.
And then the hope is at the end of those 3 weeks, we've got classes canceled on 2 days already
Right.
in order to facilitate move-in at the end of those 3 weeks, in hopes that we will be able to invite more students onto campus at that point.
Okay. I just want to set that stage so we know how each one of you are dealing with this. But one of the things that's very important to me is that we talk about what the student can do in whatever situation, whether they're hybrid, whether they're home, whether they're commuting, whether they're on residence. What can the student do to make the best of whatever situation it is, no matter which college they're going to? And so especially freshmen, I think freshmen have a really tough time because there's all these things that typically happen in those first weeks. They have the freshman orientation, they have these kickoffs, and that's going to be really difficult for all of you to do that for them. So as a freshman coming in, is there anything that you could suggest to both the freshman student and to the freshman parents in terms of helping them make friends, get involved, and learn about their college? And any order you guys can, I guess, raise your hand or something so I know who to talk. All right, Kelly.
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in here. I think that you bring up a really good point with regard to the student being motivated to figure it out for themselves. It's in some ways, there's going to be a lot of resources being thrown at them. And anytime that happens, it can feel overwhelming. And so trying to kind of weed through the things to find the like one or two things that feels really relevant to them. If that student really has a passion for service, getting involved with a service club or organization, reaching out to the service office on campus. Similarly, if they love a sport and they really are excited, even though maybe we can't get together for our club soccer practice, our club soccer groups are still getting together virtually. They're sharing information electronically. They're talking about ways that they can do conditioning at home. And so each of the different clubs and organizations and departments are offering services like this on our campus, and I'm sure on a lot of other campuses too. And so all of this information is going to get piled on. It probably will start to feel overwhelming, but I think my biggest piece of advice is to really think about, what are the things I'm passionate about? What are the things that really feel at home to me and are important to me, and the things that I'm excited to explore? Because if you get involved with 10 things, it's going to not feel manageable. But if you just try to choose a couple to get started with and make some connections that way, I think we're really working hard to find ways to connect people with people, for people to find their people. And
Right.
so that might be in Zoom rooms, it might be in online chats. Same thing with group fitness classes. I guess I'll use this as one really clear example. We're going to host a group fitness yoga class in the first week. And so at the end of this Zoom group fitness class, we'll be encouraging them to share their Instagram handles and their Snapchat names and anything else that they want to share with one another to stay connected, because you've just experienced a yoga class with 10 people who were also interested in yoga. And so now maybe you found your gym buddies for later on, or at a minimum, maybe you found somebody to just follow on social media and sort of keep a little bit of a connection with. And so I think that'll be really key, is to just try something out. Don't be afraid to try it out.
That's great advice. I think that's one of the hardest things, is that you're trying to find your people. I know that's what my daughter struggled with when she first went to Mary Washington, was finding she had this close group of friends who had been her high school friends. And then she went to college and she's like, wait a minute, I don't have those close relationships, these people who know everything about me. And how do I start forging those relationships? And so finding a common interest is a great way to do that. Do either Dr. Lacey or Aisha, do you have any other tips for that, for freshmen in particular?
Kelly, you said something really, really key, and I think that's trying something. And I think a lot of with experiencing something that nobody has experienced in our lifetime before, you have to shift your mindset. And I often think about, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas and well, if this was different or if that was different. And it's almost like you kind of have to radically accept that this is where we are. So how do you shift your mind so that you can still try to get the experiences that you want and that you were hoping for? And this is not just first year students, but also returning students. It's faculty, it's staff, it's all of us. We have to shift our mindset to try to find opportunities and creative ways to still have rich experiences when we're not in person and when we're not used to something in some environment and some way of life that we're used to. And so I think trying things, showing yourself kindness and grace, showing other people kindness and grace, because we are all having to really shift how we think about things and how we live our daily lives to get to the goals that we're trying to achieve.
Right. I think it's good. Showing grace is a pretty important thing because this is difficult for a lot of people, and understanding where everybody's coming from, that they're not going to be the person they were pre-COVID, and then we have to accept them for that new person that they are. So that's great. Dr. Lysy, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that for parents and family members, and I am really specific about family members because sometimes parents aren't the best to have this conversation with especially new students and returning students. But, as an aunt of my goddaughter is going off to college in Pennsylvania. She lives in Philadelphia, and she really wanted to live on campus, and her school is going to be all virtual, but she will still live on campus. And the conversation that I've been having with her is a technique that that Aisha and Kelly are really familiar with, is kind of a behavioral kind of what's your motivation? What drives you? And how do you imagine your life? And sometimes parents can't have this conversation. It's better to have an aunt or an uncle have this conversation. So, oftentimes I will say to my niece, because I don't want to tell her what to do, and I she's on her own path, but to ask her, so how do you imagine your college experience? What is it that you want to explore? And how do you want to be different than when you were in high school? Because especially many college freshmen are looking forward to college because it's like, okay, now I can shed some of the stuff of high school and do something new and different. And then I think once you hear the answers together, you can start getting on the college website and seeing most colleges and universities have their clubs and organizations listed, have their campus recreation listed, like the virtual and online campus rec that they're going to be doing. I know fitness classes, things like that. And you can start that conversation before they get there so that when they have a sense their first week, and I know we're doing an involvement fest like within the first 2 weeks where virtually they'll be able to go into a virtual space and see all of these different student organizations. So it's not so overwhelming. They have some sense of what they want to do before they get there.
Okay. And, we've talked a lot about like more structured things like joining clubs, and joining, interest in things that, that are already out there. What about that natural, just the guy across the hall, you want to go talk to him, you want to get to know the person next door, your suite mates, that informal relationships. Do you have any ideas about how somebody might help forge some of those too?
Yeah, I think one piece of this that I want to really call out, and that is our faculty. And when we went online in the spring, we did a survey with all of our students, asking them, thumbs up, thumbs down, how's it going for you? And the students who were thumbs down, we then called them all and said, what do you need? What's going on? And many of them said, mostly I miss the time before and after class where I got to hang out with my friends.
Right.
And have this informal. And so we gave that feedback to the faculty. And I believe that our faculty are going to do some things to ensure that there are connections in and around classes as well. Because, I think in student affairs and in campus activities, we kind of think we have the corner on relationship and community building when a lot of that happens in and around classrooms, labs, experiences. So faculty are part of this in our planning as well.
Yeah, that's good. Now, that's great if they're planning it. That's something that the college is doing for them. Now, what if somebody's out of college that isn't doing that? Do you have any ideas about how somebody could create their own type of connection to somebody? I don't know if Kelly or Aisha, if you have anything that you might want to just think about how somebody could connect to the person down the hallway, that they can't sit in the hallway and talk to them. I mean, that was one of my favorite things in college, was just sitting in the hallway and laughing and sharing a pizza. And that can't happen. So how do you do that without some structure or somebody helping you with it if it's not happening in their particular college?
Yeah. Go ahead. No, you can go.
Well, I don't know if we're going to say the same thing, but I'm glad that you brought this up, because that was something that we've been discussing heavily, is how can you recreate the spontaneity that you get when you're leaving class to go to your residence hall? The people that you encounter on the way, the short, very short interactions that you have along the way with people that you might see every day or you haven't seen in a while. And I don't know that I'm struggling with this, because this is something that is really important, but I don't know that you can actually replicate that. And so how do you kind of shift and say, all right, well, I know if spontaneity and organic relationship building is important, how can I then use what I have, the tools that I have, to then try to get to that same outcome? And, that I like what Kelly said earlier about, after you have a yoga session with 10 other people on a Zoom session, share your IG handles or your Facebook names and things like that, so you can follow one another. I think whatever opportunity that we can give students, other tools that they can use to then create and have their own kind of fun, if you will, is also key. So one of the things that we're trying to figure out is well, we can't give every student a licensed Zoom account so that they can have, a whole spontaneous game night or something with their friends for more than 40 minutes. But if we have Microsoft Teams, and we know that everybody who has an email account with Goucher College can have Microsoft Teams, well, how do we make sure that students know how to use Microsoft Teams so that they can have access to something that will still allow them to be virtual, even if they can't use Zoom? And it pretty much does the same thing, although there are some differences. How do we, think about having office hours? Student engagement, the student engagement office at Goucher College is pretty popular for students just to come in and hang out and talk to one another in between class, while they're working, while they're doing schoolwork. If they have to work on a project, it just is a in and out kind of this is home type of place. Well, we can't have that physically, but can we, as an office, make sure that we keep our Zoom account open for however long every day, so that people know they can always pop in and see familiar faces and things like that. So I think it's really about being thoughtful about how to not try to replicate everything that you have when you're in person, because I don't think that that's possible. But how then can you use the tools that you do have at your disposal to try to reach some semblance of an outcome of organic community building?
Aisha, you hit on something super important in that last sentence. I think that, and Kelly, I'll let you talk too, but it's manage expectations. That this is not going to be the same. This is not the same as the college that maybe if you're a junior that you experience as a freshman. It's different, but to embrace it for what it is. It is something different, and it's something historical, and it's something that, honestly, I keep telling my daughter, when you're 80 years old, you're going to be telling your grandkids, remember, I experienced this historical event. I went to college in a way that you will never be able to see or understand. And I'm special in that way. And embracing that difference and it's not going to be the same, and trying to replicate it the same is never going to work. So I think that was a great point. So Kelly, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I think one of the important points that we've been trying to make for our students is instead of using the phrase social distancing, we've been using the phrase physically distancing, because if you're on campus and you see somebody that you want to talk with, or say hi to or be friendly with, and you're wearing your mask and you're 6 or 8 feet away, or whatever the policy is on your campus, we want you to stay physically distant, but we want you to be really socially connected. And so I think that's a really big differentiation. Stay physically separated, but also build those social connections. And there's a lot of ways to do that virtually as well. Unfortunately, I think social media has kind of gotten us like maybe really comfortable with being behind a screen, but maybe like reaching out. If you're that introverted individual, or if you know that your student tends to be that introverted individual, having them reach out and make an individual connection, or be the one that puts your Instagram handle out there and invites individuals to a game night or something along those lines. Maybe it's in a class Zoom call, or maybe it's in the class of page on Facebook, if your university has something like that. I've seen a lot of people on that class of page, a lot of students that will say, I'm really interested in XYZ. And then in the comments, all of the other students saying, I'm really interested in that too. Maybe we could get together and do that activity this evening. Or, they'll hop on and they'll do a Netflix movie party. They're coordinating a lot of these things themselves. And so if you kind of hang back and don't engage, then you will think there's nothing to do and there's not anybody to connect with. But if you put yourself out there just even a tiny bit, you'll find those connections in a casual and social way, with just similar interests. But I also love the idea of being able to stretch outside of your comfort zone a little bit and maybe experience something brand new and different that you've never experienced before. There's so many of those opportunities available to you in a college environment.
Yeah, those are great. I mean, it is. I teach a class too. One of the classes I teach is to corporations. It's about networking. When you walk into a room and you're kind of nervous when you walk into a group and you're looking at this big room of all these people talking in these little social groups, and how do you break into that? And it's kind of a scary thing. And one of the things I always recommend is reach out to somebody else who's standing alone. They're going to be really happy you did. And so it probably applies in this situation too. There's people standing alone in the social environment. Go find them. They're going to be pretty happy to meet you. So it all applies. So we, a couple of things, we are moving right through this. I tell you, I always try to keep these to a half hour. It's tough to do because there's so much to talk about. So one of the things I just want, if you're watching right now, if you have any questions, we don't have a few more minutes that we're going to be discussing things. So if you have any questions, now's the time to throw the question out into your comments so that we can ask the panelists. But I do want to finish with a couple of things. We talked a lot about the freshmen. We talked about people who probably are newer to the college experience. What about our seniors? Is there anything in terms of, there's a lot of things that they're going to be kind of, and I don't mean necessarily the mental part of it. I mean, like what they're missing out on, but there's also things like normally in their senior year, they might be taking internships and trying to forge new relationships outside of the college and, kind of create their new life past that. Study abroad isn't going to happen. All these different things that aren't going to happen that normally would. Do you have any suggestions for our people who are exiting out of college, or they're near the end of their college years?
Every single college and university has a career center, and ensuring that seniors, hopefully they've been connected prior to their senior year, but this is a place that they need to get connected. And career centers aren't just about finding people jobs. It's also about networking. It's about learning about different professions and careers. It's about getting the skills and that you need for different professions and careers. So getting involved with the Career Center from day one as early as freshman year, but especially for our seniors, you will get lots of support and connection to other students through that as well.
Cool. All right, good. Anybody else want to add to the senior or the exiting student?
I definitely agree with Dr. Lacey, getting connected with your career center. Because, again, this is such an unprecedented time, I think this is a great time for seniors and even other class years to be thinking about, all right, well, how is this going to change what I know of careers that are available? How can I be thinking creatively about how I enter into a workforce, or even if they're going to, you know, continue on their education, like what are the things that I could be thinking about differently in relation to how I am going to be after I graduate into a world that is going to be changed.
Okay.
I also think that many of the companies and corporations and organizations that work through career centers are also doing things themselves to connect to students virtually. And so it's been really nice to see our corporate and nonprofit and government partners reaching out to students and getting connected with them in their search process as well. So there's a way to get connected to other humans that way. I think, Brianna, one of the things you said was, this is a different college experience. And so if we put our experience from college on these students, they're going to say, what? This is not what I'm experiencing. And so I believe in this generation that they're going to figure it out and they're going to teach us some things. And I think if we listen and stay connected to our students, we're going to have to learn to pivot and adjust and be flexible and come up with new ways of doing things. And that's kind of the fun thing about all of this, is it's been really creative. And thank goodness there's a lot of people out there that have really good technology that colleges and universities can tap into so that we can create things like rooms and teams and things like that that allow for students to go in and out of each other's virtual spaces.
Good points. Kelly, do you want anything to add on that one?
Yeah, I think of our student employees. We have maybe 100 or so student employees in campus recreation, and we always try to help them come up with the language for the interview, right? What kind of obstacles have you overcome, or how have you built your resilience, your set of skills for the workplace? And I think that this in particular is such a unique time in history, as we've all been saying, for students to really tune in and find their language for that interview. When somebody can say, what's an obstacle that you've overcome? We've all overcome a lot of obstacles, but what's your mindset about everything that you've experienced, and how will you be able to portray that in their interview? I think that's going to be one of the key things for our seniors, because your mindset and the way that you approach that interview, or the way that you approach just life on a daily basis, right, is going to say so much about you to that employer. And I think that that's really key for all of us within student affairs and in a college environment to be helping them find their language for that. And to be able to reflect on the experiences that they've had or that they will have throughout this year, and to frame it in a way that, hey, I'm a valuable resource for your company because I can think creatively. I can be, a problem solver, and I can have a mindset where I don't just see obstacle after obstacle. I think that's going to be this generation, this set of students that's graduating, I think is going to have a really unique skill set around that. At least that's what I like going for, right?
No, I believe you. I mean, I think 100%. I think actually that's a great place to end on this interview, is that these kids they're going to have a whole different set of skills that this crisis is teaching them. And part of that's crisis management. And like anything, I mean, it's what you put into it. People always ask me, I sent my kids to I sent one to public and one to private. And people always ask me, which one was better? And I'm like, it's what the kid put into it. It's what they asked to get out of their school. It's what they demanded from their school. Hey, this is what I need, is what they're going to get. And so this situation is no different. And I so much appreciate all of your insight on this, because I do think that the kids can thrive in this environment. They just need to find their way through it. And, and luckily we have great colleges like the three of your colleges that are providing them the tools at least to do it, but they can do it. I have faith in this generation for sure. So thank you very much. I really appreciate all of your time. And, this will be replayed live. It's live now, but it will be a replay available, so that if you have any friends who are interested in this, who might help their students kind of forge their path through this, definitely share it with them. So I appreciate it. If you guys, definitely share, comment, follow all those things that people tell people to do at the end of their YouTube channels, and I'll do that too. But I so much appreciate it, and I will. I'm going to go ahead and end our broadcast. Thanks so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.